Intertalk Radio, you're in to all things music.
I feel that music is the great unifier, no matter what your political persuasion. I have friends who are the opposite of me, but we're musicians. And when we get together to play, we have respect and we get along fine. And ultimately we all want the same things. We just have different ways of thinking how we're going to get there.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Everybody, welcome to Jackie's Groove. Hey guys, this is Jackie Bertoni, brought to you by Intertalk Radio Network, Connect All Things Music. Today, as I always say, I'm really looking forward to this interview. I look forward to all the interviews, to be totally honest with you. But this gentleman I've got coming on the line today is an associated monkey, if you will, a great player with a dear friend of mine since 1990 by the name of Michael McDonald, or better known to his friends as Mike McDonald. I've been a friend and a fan, I should say, of this gentleman in my studio today by the name of Pat Coil. He is Michael's keyboard player, if you will, B3 extraordinaire. Pat is also a professor of music at North Texas State. We're going to get more involved with that also. And, it seems like every time Pat and I are together at a show, it's either he's being dragged off by somebody to get on stage, sound check, and so on, and we get a chance to talk during dinner or maybe even afterwards. We're going to talk more today than we've done in a long time. So with that said, I want the fans of Mr. Pat Coil and Jackie's Groove worldwide to welcome with open arms and open ears to Jackie's Groove, Pat Coil. Pat, welcome, my friend. Welcome, welcome.
Well, thank you, Jackie. It's great to be on here finally. Thank you.
Yeah, man, we've been talking about this, we've been putting it together. Every time we do something together, it seems like Mike wants to commandeer the interview, which is fine with me, and I'm sure fine with you also. But it's going to get a chance to talk more about that. But we're going to step away from Michael, and we're going to talk about your earlier career and so on and so forth. So with that said, you are a Missouri-born boy. And
I am, Jefferson.
And I want to find out. I find out from a lot of my my interviews. I'm always curious because as we come along and as we grow and as we mature as musicians itself, and we try to become and stay a chameleon, if you will, transparent to play all styles of music. And with that said, when you grow up, or if you have grown up, when growing up in the Coil household, what kind of music were you exposed to? What kind of music were you forced to listen to, or did you welcome at a young age? Share with us.
Well, probably a typical story. My mother made me take piano lessons when I was starting around eight years old. And it's not that I didn't like it, but I started listening to the radio and trying to play what I heard on the radio. Right. But I kept the lessons up, which was a good thing. And eventually grew to like them. But I was also at the same time trying to play by ear, what I was hearing on the radio. And so that's pretty much my beginnings, and then later on in school, I had a band director who was instrumental in really getting me interested in being a musician. So that's basically the gist of it.
You qualified. You said your mama gave you or forced you, if you will, into piano lessons. Was piano keys? Was that your first instrument of choice? Is that your calling, or was there another instrument that you wanted to start out with?
No, piano was it. Piano is it, and it's still pretty much my main instrument. And though over the years I've I've added B3 and synthesizers and programming and all that stuff. So which anybody who's a working musician, like as a keyboard player, you need to wear a lot of hats and be able to play lots of different kinds of music. So that's what I do.
I'm curious, Pat, when I see you with Mike all the time on stage and so on, I see you behind that, the big B3 with the Leslie behind you and so on. And I've yet to see you play outside of Michael and his band. Do you employ a B3 with you on all gigs itself, or am I not going to see that when I see you on your own?
No, probably not. You would probably see me with a piano and a keyboard.
Okay.
Just depending on what kind of gig it is. I mean, jazz is my first love. Though, I live in Nashville, so I play all kinds of music. I play gospel and I play country and pop and everything in between. But more than likely, if you came to one of my gigs, it would be either just piano or piano plus maybe a keyboard or two. Going to, jumping in here, I want to go back to the Coil family because they're a little alone, being in a difficult situation with a dad that's on the road and gainfully employed, which is a wonderful thing, and being away, then of course, striving to get back home to the family. But to add insult to injury, I mean, now that you are a professor at North Texas State, which is not around the corner from Nashville, how does that impact the family? How much time away are you from the family when it comes to not Mike, not touring, but actually as a teacher? Share with us. How does that work out? Well, it's interesting you should ask that question because I have news about that. I have spent 3 years there. I've loved every minute of it, the students and the faculty there. But I have a house in Nashville, and I had a residence in Denton, Texas, where University of North Texas is. And I have just made the decision to resign so that I can be here with my family, because being on the road and doing that gig at the same time was just making it impossible for me to have a family life.
No doubt.
And that's the most important. That's the most important thing. And we made the decision, my wife and I together, that Nashville is where we want to be. We love Nashville and all the music here. All of our friends are here, and most of the work I do is here, aside from being on the road with Michael.
Right.
So it was a very difficult, yet at the same time, very clear decision that it was the right thing to do. But I wouldn't trade, the experience of doing that for the world. It was actually really, and it continues to be wonderful. I'll be doing it my last semester this spring.
And how did your students, Pat, react to the fact that when the teacher told them, "Hey, I'm not coming back"? How was it? Was it melancholy for them?
Well, it depends on the student.
True.
I would say most of my students are going to miss me. Some maybe not so much. You just don't know. And everyone's different. But I definitely have grown close to many of my students. In the 3 years I've been there, and and that particular school attracts incredibly talented kids.
Amazing.
And the main thing I've been able to offer them is years of experience being in the business.
Sure.
And what they can expect and what they have to know and what they need to be prepared for. So there's been several of my students that are out now on their own, like touring with other bands and making their mark. They're starting to become professional musicians. So that makes me very, very happy, because that's kind of what it's all about, is kind of giving back what people gave you when you first started growing up, Yeah.
And Pat, think about it. What a treat to the students to know that their teacher, not only is he is poised and praised and very proud with what he's teaching, but he's also coming with this lineage of this iconic singer by the name of Michael McDonald. And I have a cool correlation with that, because I have years of recording since 1994 with the great reggae band called Big Mountain. Their biggest hit was Peter Frampton's remake of Baby I Love You Way, which still is on every radio station and every restroom speaker out of every McDonald's. You can't get away from it. But the fact is, ooh, baby, I love the reggae version. I won't be singing it too, I promise. But the thing about it is that, with this song being a worldwide success, even sold more copies than Frampton did on his original, which Peter loves it because he owns that song. But the fact is, with Keno McQueenie, the lead singer, not only is this guy a really good-looking guy, and he's got female fans all around the world, but he's also a teacher in San Diego, a music teacher. Mm-hmm. And so it gets. I asked him, how was that? I mean, the fact that you've got long curly hair and you are this iconic reggae band and everything else, but you're also a teacher. And how does that look at the students? Did they give them the wherewithal to think that the teacher's that cool that they can come in later, they can smoke weed or do whatever they want? Or what's the feeling? He says, Jackie, actually, it's just the opposite. When you have that moniker, when you have that label of being quote unquote famous, but you become an ordinary person in the classroom, they actually start paying attention to you more and not looking at you as the quote unquote teacher. Did you find that to be somewhat true, somewhat parallel, that they were listening to you more because they knew your background?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Especially the fact that I live in Nashville, many of them are interested in that as a destination to work. And while UNT is a quote unquote jazz school,
sure,
the jazz allows, the background in jazz and the that's a hard music to learn, and
right.
The improvisational aspect of it can be a really great asset to any style that that someone chooses to go into. So a lot of the students, during my lessons, private lessons, and also in the classes I teach, would come up to me and say, "Hey, what do I need to know if I was going to move to Nashville? What kinds of things?"
Right.
I'd be so happy to share that with them. There's or LA. I lived in LA, and I've
sure.
actually had careers in, I guess, 4 different cities. But I try to, as best I can, lay it out for them. Like, of course, times have changed since, but I'm really happy when they ask me those questions, because then I can really have to feel like I can help them.
And Pat, let me ask you this question. With so many of my interviews, so many of our mutual friends that I've had the option to either work with, record with, and in this case, interview, it seems the majority of them are all coming out of Berkeley. What, with your knowledge of jazz, what put you to North Texas and not Berkeley?
Well, that's my alma mater, number one. I got a scholarship there, actually, interestingly enough. The band director I talked about earlier, kind of led me to North Texas.
Right.
And in order to be in the high school jazz band, I had to play in the marching band, and he started me on tuba. And so I grew to like the tuba, and so he said, "Well, let's make a tape and send in an audition tape to North Texas and see what happens." And so we did, and I actually got a scholarship, a tuba scholarship.
Really?
To North Texas. Of course, I gave up the tuba after a couple of years and stayed with piano, but that's the reason when that job became available, I decided on a kind of on a lark to say, well, I'll see what happens. I'll apply, and I didn't really expect to get it, but I did get it, so I decided to try it, and now I'm here. So it's been good.
And I'm going to segue. I'm going to kind of put a correlation right here. You kind of walked into that when you mentioned tuba. I mean, the old adage is, what's the definition of a true optimist? A tuba player with a beeper. But the fact is, who made tuba recently more hip, if you will, was the tuba player. His name escapes me, but from the Roots on Jimmy Fallon.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But he's playing it like Doc Cook, from the Funky Doctor from Tower. He's playing it more like a baritone. Sax, right, if you will, and the stuff I've heard. But here's my question I want to ask you. Just had the pleasure of TiVoing Mike on Jimmy Fallon last Friday, a week ago Friday, I should say, in promotion of Wide Open. It's killing it. But I have to ask this question. I want you to be honest with me, and as you always have been, but because I know I'm an insecure person. Most musicians are. But when you see your friend, your boss up there killing it on Jimmy Fallon in front of millions of people, but Pat is not behind him to his right shoulder, and nor is Jacob, nor is Dan, nor is anybody, Drea, and so on. How was that? How did you feel? And share with me, how did you feel to see Mike up there killing it, but you not playing it?
I loved it, I got to tell you. But
okay.
If it were probably any other band or any other show, I'd be wanting to be there. I'd say, "Oh man, I wish I was doing it."
Right.
I think we'd sound better. I think we'd sound better than that. But that particular group, the Roots, they are awesome. So, I felt like, well, it sounds great. Like, what can you say? So,
and who were the vocalists? There's three vocalists.
I'm just glad they can't go on the road with them.
Yeah, thank you. From your lips to God's ears. And Pat, do you know who the vocalists were on the Fallon show? They killed it, man. They sound like they were with Mike forever.
No, some probably just some New York singers there.
Crazy.
I don't know.
Crazy, man. And I want to give a shout out to to the band. And again, I said earlier, I want to say hi to Dan. I want to say hi to to Mark, Dre, Jacob, yourself, and of course Mike, Amy, and everything else. In fact, I know Amy's listening in today. Well, again, she's planning to listen today, but I had to tell her that it's not going live. So
and Bernie
kind of blew that. And so, absolutely. And so with that said, because I look back at your lineage of your the music you played with. I mean, other than Mike, but with Carmen and with Olivia Newton John and Amy Grant and Vince Gill, and I mean all the way down to Woody Herman. When you got the call, and I want to know when you got that call to join Mike's band, was that something that was pre-planned, or was that just, did it blindside you?
It was out of the blue. I'll never forget the day I was at one of my son's soccer games. He was probably, I don't know, when I first started playing with Mike, it was 2002, I think.
Right.
Well, anyway, I was at a soccer game, and the phone rang, and it was Mike's assistant, and she was telling me, hey, there's a, somebody recommended you. There's a benefit concert that Mike's regular keyboard player can't make. Can you do it? Of course, I jumped on it and said, absolutely.
Was that Chuck? Was that Chuck Sabatino? Okay.
No, it was Mark Harris. Mark Harris at the time.
Okay.
And of course, I've been a fan of Mike's, since way before that, and I just jumped on it. And of course,
exactly.
And then I played the gig, not knowing any of the music. I just showed up, and was on B3, and I was just by ear filling in what I heard. Of course, I knew some of the tunes, and it was so much fun, and I had such a great time. And soon after that, Mark, the other keyboard player, quit the band, and I got the call to do a tour, and then it's been, I've been with him ever since, pretty much. Except for maybe one year in there when he did the Dukes of September tour with Donald Fagen's band, and I went with Olivia Newton John for that year. But I've been doing it ever since, and it's been one of the great joys of my life, playing with him. And of course, Mike is such a great guy. He's not
understatement,
not an egotistical person. He's always been one of the guys in the band, and who, just happened to have hit it, become Michael McDonald.
Yeah.
And
hey Pat, let me jump in here. I'm going to interrupt you right now because we're coming out of the segment right now, and I want to pick that up because unfortunately we're not going to turn this into a Michael McDonald hour, but it's part of your DNA now. You can't get away from it. So with that said, listeners, don't go anywhere. I'm going to be back here momentarily with Mr. Pat Coil, keyboardist extraordinaire with Mr. Michael McDonald and former professor, if you will. This is Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Radio. Here, connect to all things music. Guys, don't go anywhere. Segment number 2, just right around the corner. Stay tuned.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EnterTalkRadio.com.
This is Morris O'Connor, guitarist for Earth, Wind & Fire, and you listen to my good buddy Jackie Bertoni on Jackie's Groove.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Everybody, welcome back to segment number 2 of Jackie's Groove. My name is Jackie Bertoni, and we are brought to you by Intertalk Radio Network, Connect All Things Music. Pat, before we go on, I just want to tell the listeners out there and yourself, when you can't listen to Jackie's Groove or the plethora of other shows that are on our network, and my God, it goes deep when it comes to gearheads and everything about the industry other than the straight of music, please download our easy-to-use and easy-to-navigate application on iTunes or Google. 2 words, Intertalk is the first, radio is the second. You can take Jackie's Groove and the shows that are on our network on the go with you when you can't listen live. So with that said, you are listening now. I'm not going to lie to you, it's not live. This is a pre-record, but we're going to act like we're live and on the air itself. But with that said, Pat, we talked about this on the break, and I'm real curious. We talked about you guys, the band, being on hiatus until February, but you kind of dropped a little bit of a bombshell on me because I was looking forward to that because I've got a bunch of shows I'm going to be going to. I've been talking to Mike and Amy and such, but to tell the listeners out there, you are subbing the gig out. You're not going to be on that tour. Tell them why.
That's true. Yeah. Well, I'll be starting my last semester at UNT, and they have a limited number of days you can be away for professional leave, and unfortunately, this tour exceeds it by quite a lot. And I was able to sub it out to a great keyboardist named Mike Logan, who's Boz Scaggs' keyboardist, and I know he'll do a great job. And
I know him well.
But I'll be back. But I will be back, for future tours. Now that I will have more time, since I won't be teaching at the school anymore, and so looking forward to that.
Hey,
but
Pat,
yeah, I've had a lot of people ask me about that.
And not that you are Michael and his voice, but and honestly speaking, how does Mike view that? Is he cool with that? I mean, you've planted yourself in that chair. How did he react to that when he knew that you were not going to be coming on this tour?
He was fine. He understands. I mean, he understands more than most people that that people have to have lives and they have to make a living and they have to make decisions about what's best for them to do at a certain time. And he's totally understanding. It's one of the best things about him. He's not one of those people who are going to, heck with you. We'll just get somebody else. He's not like that. He's loyal, and I very, very much value him as a band leader and a friend. I think he's just got the right combination of everything for what he does.
And as I said earlier on the break too, got a couple listeners, and I even asked the question, a couple of messages, I should say, when they see Pat Coil on stage with Mike McDonald, when he's playing, I noticed that he has a large set of headphones that is accompanying his head. What are those? Are those his in-ear, out-ear monitors? Please elaborate. So go ahead.
That's my Princess Leia look from the.
I love it.
No, it's those are studio headphones. A lot of what I do is studio work, and so instead of in-ears, for a while I used those, and then but I have since gone back to in-ear monitors because they are a bit clumsy, and not that I care what I look like on stage, but we had some TV stuff that we've done this year, and I just thought, well, it might be better to not have those on my head.
And it's so cool you mentioned the TV stuff. Let me give a little spoiler here. You were with a dear friend of mine earlier this month, my good friend Joe Thomas, who is the head of AV at BMG, but also the controller of PBS's Soundstage. And Joe and I go back to 1994 together when he called me up and said, hey, Mike's going to come back again, but he's coming back with his new stuff, not the Motown, because Michael's already graced Soundstage 2 or 3 times prior to this taping.
Yeah, that was my 4th time with him to do that.
Yeah. And Mike said to me, Michael said to me, man, you're not going to believe it. He goes, Jackie, my voice sucked so bad. I go, Mike, trust me, on your worst day, your voice couldn't suck. And he goes, no, trust me. And I told Joe Thomas that, and Joe goes, what is he talking about, man? He goes, this man, his voice he's come into his voice at the age of 65, and it's truly, truly amazing. I look at Mike to this day, when I first did my first album with Mike and Henry Capono back in 1990, that was my first jump off pad. I mean, to walk in the studio and to be on my first major album with Tower of Power Horns, with Mike Porcaro, with Steve Porcaro, with Jeff Porcaro, Third World, and of course being produced by Michael McDonald and Henry Capono. You talk about a little bit of awe-inspiring to walk in there, a young guy, to have Mike and Ross Pallone. You remember Ross? He was engineering it. Go ahead.
No, I didn't know him. No.
Oh, okay. Well, that was Michael's engineer for years, and just to sit there and to be directed by Michael McDonald was really, really strange to me. It was actually very nerve-wracking. The fact that my wife drove me to the gig, to the studio, because I was that crazy. And then, speaking of crazy, as Amy and Mike call Dylan, their eldest, a little chimpanzee on crack. Back then, when I was holding Dylan, he was bouncing off the walls at the studio, and so I felt it apropos to give him a pair of drumsticks and a shaker, in which he retreated in the corner of the studio, and you didn't hear a word from him the rest of the day. So Mike goes, that will always be in his mind that you actually tamed the little beast within. In fact, I had Dylan on the show on our Emerging Mondays a couple months ago, and actually, truth be told, his ratings were higher than his dad's and his mom. So that just shows that there's young listeners out there. And I want to jump back on segment number 2 when we came in here. Let's talk about that tune. And I bring that up because I'm listening to the saxophonist. I want you to give a shout out to those players, but I also want to ask this question again. Since the last time you and I chopped it up, have you had contact with Sam Riney? Yes or no?
I have not, but I would love to.
It's like he's worse than
Sam was
Jimmy Hoffa.
A great friend. What's that?
I said he's worse than and harder to find than Jimmy Hoffa is right now. I mean, nobody knows where to get a hold of him, which is very, very strange.
We went to North Texas together.
Right.
We played,
of course,
many jam sessions together. We learned to play together. And then in LA, when I moved to LA, I probably saw him a handful of times. I played with him a handful of times. But you know how LA is. Mm-hmm. It's so spread out that you're lucky to see someone maybe 2 times a year, And but I've always loved Sam's playing, and I miss him as a person. I always consider him a good friend, even though it's been a long time.
And that's Riney to the listeners out there. Great jazzist, a funky jazz player, straight ahead jazz player. Definitely someone you want to get yourself involved with. And so, with that said, Pat, who were the players on that tune, and what was the name of the tune that we came in on the second set?
Oh, that was called Schemes and Dreams. That's the record. One of the records I did for a label called Sheffield Lab Records, and it was recorded live to 2-track. On that track, the saxophone player was Bob Shepard. The drummer was John Robinson. The bass player was Jimmy Johnson.
Right.
The synth player was Russ. It was either John Beasley or Russell Ferrante. Yes. Percussionist was probably Luis Conte on that one.
Right.
And and then that particular record was produced by Lyle Mays and Steve Rodby. who were with the Matheny band at that time, and Lyle and I were roommates in college, and he was like a prodigy, incredible genius, still is, right, but I was fortunate enough to be friends with him, and we were roommates for a while. I learned a lot from Lyle. So that song was produced by Lyle Mays and co-written by myself and Lyle.
How old of a tune is that? How old is that?
Probably, well, that was done right before I moved to Nashville, so that would have been 93, maybe, something like that.
That's the beauty of jazz, because it's timeless. You don't know where the timeline is and where it comes in.
Well, those records still sound good. They're,
absolutely.
Sheffield took great pride in the sound of the records, so they still hold up really well.
Yeah, I did a recording years ago with Tower of Power, Sheffield Labs, called Direct. And I think.
I remember that.
Yeah, I think his name was Lincoln. Is it Lincoln Adler? If I'm correct.
Lincoln Mayorga and Doug Sachs.
Mayorga, there you go. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, man, I know it's crazy. So, I want to say something too, because a lot of the listeners out there, and a lot of people personally want to find out, and I'm going to go back to this and touch lightly on it. But you just mentioned a little while ago about Mike being the real person that he is. I mean, it's not a show. Mm-hmm. This man is the most inviting, embracing, God-sent person. I mean, you look at somebody with this legacy, with the hits over and over and over again, and he is unaffected by it. And as much as he gets pulled by that itself, when you're on the road with this man, I've had plenty of opportunities to sit and eat with him and get amazed by the paparazzi and the fans that walk up every 2 minutes. I remember we were at this great restaurant, and I'm sitting there looking at Mike, and this guy would, Mr. McDonald, I don't want to interrupt you. Excuse me, Michael, I don't want to interrupt. It's over and over again. And Michael said, I just once want to say, then fucking don't. And we lost it. But Michael said, he goes, I can't, because when they stop coming up, as you know, that's the career's over with. So, but the fact is, let's talk about the situation on this new album that was released on September the 15th called Wide Open. And first album, 17 years of all new music. I have to ask Mr. Coil, how many parts on that, how much music on that did your fingers grace on those songs?
Well, unfortunately, none. I got called for a couple of sessions that he wanted me to do, but I was at school teaching, which is another reason I'm not going to do it anymore. And I did play on one track that didn't make the record, but maybe it'll be on a future record. Who knows? But he had some pretty good keyboard players on there, and himself and David Page and a few others.
Absolutely.
So it's a great record.
I've overdosed on the album. In fact, the last couple of days, my wife and I have been doing a lot of traveling just in the car, and we've been kind of putting Mike on shuffle of all the different tunes. Some songs I never even heard of, and some songs that I've been blessed to play on with him, and so on. But with that said, I got to be honest with you. On the new release, on Wide Open, my favorite tune is Half Truth. Do you have a favorite tune on the album that you really enjoy playing live now?
Oh, well, I think my favorite tune is Just Strong Enough to play live. Yeah. It's like just a cool, blues thing that Michael is probably the best at, and it builds to this really great, the song just keeps building and then Mike's voice just soars over the top of it. It's and it was written by, who wrote it? Mike, and I'm blanking on the name in Nashville, real famous Nashville songwriter. Well, I'll think of it after we.
It's called a liner note. That's what kids don't know it out now. Later, can open the liner note and find out what that is. And Pat, let me ask you a question. You're up on stage and you're playing with, of course, a gentleman who's prominent as a keyboard player, but has been doing a lot of stuff live. He's been playing guitar on a few tunes, which is kind of a cool thing to see Mike step away from the keyboard. But when Michael's back there and he's playing the lead lines and so on, would you consider yourself during the show, during the concert, this 90-minute set that you guys are doing, would you consider yourself playing more comping on the songs, or would you be consider more of a lead player or a soloist? How do you explain that with your role in that band?
Well, I mean, there are times when I do have a few solos, but the rest of the time I'm being, for want of a better word, orchestrational, you know,
right.
with a B3 and then a lot of the synth parts I play. You know, I'm basically just adding to the orchestrational element of the tune, or, you know, just trying to bring something to the song that doesn't take away from anything and doesn't overshadow anything. I try to fit in like a puzzle piece and do my part, which is what I spent my life doing basically in studio work, is like just being, you know, like trying to stay out of everyone's way, yet play something that complements everything.
You know, and that's so cool that you say that, because a lot of musicians that I've been blessed to interview and plays and guys that I've actually spent time in the studio with and or on the road. That's a great point that you brought up, because, you know, there's a lot of people that have the misnomer that because you're a great player means you're going to be great in the studio or means you're going to be great live. And that's not always the truth. It doesn't transcend.
Not true.
Fortunately, I know your abilities. I know my abilities. You know, luckily I can play great live, but I'm more at home in the studio. That's myself personally, you know, and because of my limited, you know, because of MS and so on, I don't have that opportunity to go out and tour as much as I used to. So, you know, they say God works in mysterious ways. And so, you know, I found my thrill, for the lack of a better word, on, you know, not on Blueberry Hill, but the fact is in the studio where my music, where my talent can transcend different styles of music. You know, like I was talking to Mike, when I was talking to Mike on the new album, they opted to go for more of program percussion and so on, you know, and it's like I told Mike, I said, you know, I really, you know, if the opportunity comes around, I want to do it, because, you know, I've got all my abilities here. You know, Mike and I will, you know, many stuff that I've done with Mike on other albums, I never recorded with him on his own personal music. And like Amy said, we'll take care of that. And with that said, I crack up, you know, and I digress, because we're going to go back to the amazing vocalist of Dre. I mean, I love her voice. I mean, her stage presence is ridiculous. But there's another woman that has joined the tour, and her name is Amy Holland / McDonald. And I want to talk more about that on the third and final segment. Some funny anecdotes that Amy and I have spent together and so on. And on this third and final segment of a 1-hour show, Pat, we want to find out how the listeners out there in a professional manner can stalk you, how they can hire Pat Coil, how they can keep him out of the schools and where he loves the most of being on the road or in the studio. And we're going to patronize you on that and talk about your music and where it can be bought nowadays, as they say. And and if you have anything that you want to share with us, Pat, you know, I want to talk more about too, you know, when you're playing with someone like Michael McDonald and you're playing in the world and so on, I want to find out exactly your feelings of where you guys feel comfortable, what you think you're bringing to the world today as opposed to when you joined the band in the early 2000s, and what that means and how it's different now. So when we come back on the final segment with Mr. Pat Coil, ingenious keyboardist, B3 player, jazzer, if you will, and tuba player, for those who don't know, we'll be back. We'll talk more in depth on the last hour of Jackie's Groove. Guys, Jackie Bertoni, and it's brought by Intertalk Radio, Connect All Things Music. We're back on segment number 3 after a short break. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on InterTalkRadio.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Michael McDonald, and you're listening to my good buddy Jackie Bertoni on Jackie's Groove.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I'm sitting in a New York speakeasy right now, smoke kind of traveling across the stage, and there's this man sitting up on the stage behind a piano, and that man I'm talking about is trying to draw a picture for you, and that's his name is Pat Coil. And Pat, welcome back to segment number 3. And I'm just so proud that you and so honored that you chose to come up with this. We have to take a couple seconds, Pat, real quick, and I want to thank my sponsors who keep these lights on in this crazy network. And what we do is I want to say first and foremost to Pitbull Audio, Calvin Lee and the guys who believe in us, and we want you to believe in them. The largest online and even physical address in National City, and that's Pitbull Audio, and it's pitbull.com, and where they just want you to play it loud. And everybody else at Bling Group, one of the greatest jewelry companies in the industry, and that's blinggroup.com, where they just want to add a little extra bling into your life. And also people like Sabian Cymbals, my choice for the past 25 years, Sabian.com. Vader Percussion, my drumstick company for the past 25 years, Vader, VATER.com. All the boys at DW Drum Workshop, the world's largest and most used drums worldwide, and reach them at dwdrums.com, and who now are the proud owners of my favorite percussion company, 28 years going on with lpmusic.com. Thank you, guys. So with that said, business is paid. Pat, I want to ask you a question. I asked you on the break. We're in a really weird situation right now worldwide. We're in a serious situation of unrest. And your boss, your partner, Michael, his belief about peace and love and so on. And hopefully one day we can all wake up and there'll be birds chirping and so on. But it's up to us as people with a platform and a forum that we can go ahead and try to perpetuate peace as much as we can. But let's go back for a quick second. Let's go back to the early 2000s when you joined Michael's band. Things were greatly different back then. There was It was still a screwed up world that we live in. But the fact of the matter is that you guys have traveled all over the world, and ambassadors of peace, if you will. What can you share with the listeners right now that differs greatly from back then to today? What are you feeling when you guys are walking on stage? Is there unrest? What is it that you guys are going to try to bestow on the listeners to bring them out of this funk that we're in? Share with us.
Well, I just know that every time we come out on stage, the audience is with us, and I feel that music is the great unifier.
Absolutely.
One thing I know is I have, no matter what your political persuasion, I have friends who are the opposite of me, but we're musicians, and when we get together to play, we have respect and we get along fine, and we, ultimately we all want the same things. We just have different ways of thinking how we're going to get there.
Right.
And, if we could, I think if we can all get in touch with that part of ourselves, that, we're all in this together kind of feeling, which I think, I know Mike definitely addresses that when he's on stage. And,
yes.
and I think, every time, he steps out on stage, I'm sure there's, every viewpoint in the world represented out there.
Of course.
But he manages to bring them together, and through his songs and through his music. And to me, there's no more important calling than
nothing.
Than that. There's nothing more important than that. So,
and forgive my stab at humor here, but music and performance and brotherhood and musicianship definitely trumps politics, and that's about as funny as I'm going to get when it comes to political satire. But with that said, in talking about being a band, even on the side of the situation of being a network, we are a band. We are a motley crew. Everybody here at Intertalk Radio, we are one conducive team and cohesive team. And we argue, we bitch, we yell, we are, and we don't always see eye to eye. But at the end of the day, we do come together because every time we turn that microphone on and the lights go on, we're doing something right. And I want to thank my team, as I always do, with Paul Brzezinski. You talked to Paul in the beginning, getting over the flu himself. He's the COO and also the head engineer of the network. Also Cedric and my segment producer. You've been talking to Megan. And thank you guys for doing everything you've done and for an amazing 2017. And the person I want to introduce you to, Pat, you've met him a couple times on different occasions. He is called our fearless leader, the CEO of this network. I call him a tyrant, but that's okay also. But he wanted to come on and he wanted to say a personal thank you and a blessings for the new year. So with that said, Pat, would you say hi to Florentino? And Florentino, please say hi to Pat with me.
Hey, Pat, what's going on, man?
Hey, Florentino, nice to talk to you.
Yeah, definitely. Did Jackie say fearless or hairless leader? I don't know. I couldn't tell.
I wasn't sure.
Both.
He's a character. I'm so glad we got a radio show to keep him off the street. That's all I got to tell you guys.
That's great. Well, I'm having fun. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Always. Well, hopefully as much fun as we have when we watch you guys play, man. You guys are always amazing.
Great. Thank you.
As great as Michael is, he's only as great as his weakest link, and all of those links are far superior, man. That includes you, obviously.
Well, be sure and remind him of that.
Yes, we will. We will. And I'll expect the percentage at the end of the day once we tell him to give you a raise.
There you go.
Yeah, man, it's been a great time. And last time we hung out was at the winery, and that was such a fun show. You guys.
Yes, I remember.
And you guys, not to bring up kind of technical difficulties, but those always kind of happen. You guys were such troopers because the front of house
went down.
Yeah, the front of house went out, and you guys just kept playing with your heart, and the people were singing along with you guys to kind of help make up for the lack of amplitude.
I think. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's right.
You remember that?
That's right.
Yeah, you're the Italian guy. I don't remember his name. The guy that's been traveling with you for years. What's his name? A New Yorker. Nick.
Yeah.
And we were trying to figure out what Nick did, and Nick goes, "Let me show you what I did." And he was kidding around. The next thing you know, the power goes down, and he runs out like crazy. Him and Dylan, and trying to get it all together. Yeah, and like Tino said, everybody was singing not only a word for word, but in perfect harmony, which was great.
It was.
So go ahead, Florentino.
Sometimes those moments, make it special, man, and definitely want to.
No, that was all planned. That was all planned. We do that every show.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to do that every show. It was, it was definitely a challenge. But with that said, man, we hear about your music, and the tracks are wonderful, and you've got your own artistry, so. With that said, as Jackie likes to say, we like to stalk you, man. We want to know how we can find out more about Pat and the current music and the stuff that's going to be coming out and anything. So if you tell us all social media, can people use any way to get to you?
First of all, there's a website, patcoil.com, a very original name. And then there's, I'm on Facebook. Pat Coil Music, and that's about it, really.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm working on a new record, and we'll be trying to probably through social media, like trying to promote that. As soon as I get things a little bit more on the like getting things going, and that first track you guys played when I first came on was one of the new cuts from it. So
awesome. It's
called 3 till midnight. And so So as that progresses,
is there a working title on this album, Pat? I'm sorry, Pat. Is there a working title on this album?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
I mean, I've still got a bunch of songs that I'm still like, I change the names every day, you know. So,
it's your prerogative.
But I mean, that particular song was called 3 Till Midnight, and I'm working on a bunch of others and and now that I'm going to have a little bit more time for recording projects and you know, and everything else, because the teaching gig was pretty much all encompassing as far as how much time I had for anything. So I'm looking for, I've got a renewed energy now to like try to do some of my own projects, you know, just for the love of it, basically.
Gotcha. Definitely, for sure, man. And we'll be out in Nashville sometime in the summertime when the next Summer NAMM is announced.
Oh, okay.
So we'll have to have you come out and sit down with us and talk to us in person, man, if you're around. If you're not,
if I'm not on tour with Mike, then I'll be glad to.
would love to have you out there, man.
Sure. Hopefully it'll work out. That'd be great.
Very cool. I'm going to pass it back to Mr. Jackie. Take the baton back, sir, and looking forward to the rest of this interview.
Oh, thank you.
All righty. Thanks, Florentina. Hey, Pat, you know, we were kidding on the break, and I was telling you about when Amy Holland McDonald, we were talking at Newport Beach when we were all together last year. And it's when I actually had the opportunity to interview Mike and Amy. And I had said to Amy afterwards, I said, you know what, you really need, because this is, you know, during A Light on My Path, which is still one of my favorite albums, her current release. And it's amazing. I love that. And you played on that album also too, which I have to give you props. I have to give you props on that. I mean, what great company to be involved in on that. But I said to Amy, Amy, what do you think it'd be just normal, or would it be just think common courtesy, since the man is sleeping with you, he can at least employ you? And they lost it. In fact, that was the 5 minutes of that was like of laugh. And then it comes down later. I get a call from Amy, and Amy goes, "Guess what?" I said, "What?" She goes, "I guess apparently what you guilted Michael into, you know, I'm singing now with the band." And she goes, "Not only do I get to sleep with the star, he buys me new clothes, and I'm traveling." So with that said, you know, I mean, she adds so much. In fact, I was just watching Scarface a couple nights ago, and the opening sequence of the Club Babylon when everybody's dancing in the 80s clothes to a song called She's on Fire, which is actually Amy Holland, one of her big hits. I don't know if you knew that, but she became very, very hip into, you know, and it was funny. We were laughing because, you know, you're talking about old meets new. And the last show that you guys were out here at Pechanga a year ago, actually in April, and when you guys were, you surprised the audience with Warren G. was in the audience, you know, and Warren, who sampled Mike's song, I Keep Forgetting, off of Regulator. And it's funny because, you know, I talked to Dylan and I talked to Scarlett, that's the Offspring, and they prefer Warren G's version better than Dad's version. And of course, as they would, you know, for the millennials that they are. Hey, Pat, do you understand what's going on in the music business today? Do you care?
Well, I mean, you know, I like a lot of the new things. A lot of it I don't. I mean, to me, it's just kind of the same as it's always been. There's great music coming out, and then there's not so great music. And most of the time I focus on writing my own, and you know, I've got all these influences that I've had through the years that come out in my music. So I try to, I mean, I'm not cognizant or like trying to be current in any way, but you know, every now and then I hear something and I'm going, man, there's, you know, what is that? And let me figure that out. And then just like any influence, a musician or any kind of music, it sort of gets into your head and becomes part of what comes out of you. So, you know, in that respect, I do pay attention, and I do, I do try to stay somewhat current.
So you're optimistic.
As far as popular. Yeah, I am. Well, I am. You know, the business has changed so much.
Daily.
And just the model of how people get to be. I mean, you know, when I have students, they're like trying to figure out how to get out there and get their music out. You know, it's like well, I don't know what to tell them sometimes. It's like it's changed so much since the day that I was trying to do it. You know, well, I was still trying to do it, but you know, when I was their age and like trying to figure things out, and there was a certain model, and you know, you had record companies and you had bands that you tried to get on to be on tour with that were. I mean, it's all changed now. It's like everybody's carving their own niche, but they figure it out. You know, it's
you have to.
You know, they figure it out, and it's all different, but everything will always change, and that's the thing you can count on, is that it will always change, and it will keep changing. But you know, music stays. You know, to me, the music, if that comes first, and not the hype, and
dig it,
not the so-called popularity of it, then you know, if you keep the music first, then you know it's going to shine through somehow. Yeah. You know, that's my optimism, I guess.
Pat, let me ask you this question. Pat, the tuba player, to Pat, the keyboard player, Pat, the teacher, all-encompassing music. Mm-hmm. It's actually a question my wife came up with, and I use it on a regular basis. People love it. I'm going to throw it at you. If there was no word music in Pat Coil's life, nothing to do with music, if music was nothing, period, what would you be doing today?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. Well, I think the only other thing I wanted to do was become a forest ranger.
Really?
So, yeah, I enjoy the outdoors. I enjoy hiking. I don't do enough of it. And that was probably, you know, besides music, that was the thing that, you know, lit my passion, you know. And it's interesting. I have a son in LA now who's an actor, comedian, and he's just as passionate about what he's doing as I am about music. And you know, he is just now starting to come into his own. He's starting to like do some really good things, which someday next time we talk, I'll tell you about him. But
dig it.
It's really wonderful to see him going for what he wants to do. You know, but yeah, that was the only other thing I really felt passionate about, was being in the forest. You know.
Hey Pat, let me ask this question. We're running out of time here. Give me 20 seconds here.
Mm-hmm.
Give a shout out. Say anything you want to tell your fans out there. Thanks and so on and so forth.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I appreciate every person who's ever come to one of Michael's shows, or who's bought my records in the past, or come to any of my gigs. And, you know, I mean, the people that listen are what it's all about. And without that feedback, and without that, I don't even know without that relationship, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, you know, you can write all day, record, and play all day long, and if there's no one there to share it with, to reciprocate,
falls on deaf ears. Exactly.
You know, yeah, and then, you know, I mean, that's what it's all about, is sharing it with each other. So that's absolutely
beautiful.
Thank you,
Pat. It's done. We're done. We did it, brother. We finally put it together. So everybody, please visit patcoil.com. And patronize this man, and buy his music wherever music is sold. Also go to michaelmcdonald.com to find out where Pat won't be on the next tour, and stay in contact with the man. So with that said, everybody, please welcome and say thank you to Mr. Pat Coil. Pat, we thank you so much, as I always say to all my podcasts. Peace to your music, brother. We will see each other real soon, I promise. Love you, brother. Thank you so much.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al DiMeola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time, or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it, because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.